at the innovation in itself, in particularly, and being able to clearly define like how is your solution that you're putting forward is innovative and is different to kind of the usual great buys or good buys that we see, and that weighs almost about 40%. And then the second criteria is, of course, is the M&E piece and the research piece, being able to articulate very clearly what the research questions are and the learning agenda is going to be very critical, and that amounts to about 30% of the selection criteria. The third one is around sustainability and partnerships. That's amounting to 15%. So as much as this is an innovation and we are also looking at early stage innovations or slightly more advanced or developed innovations, it's also very important to us that we can see that your program or your innovation has been designed with scaling in mind upfront. So that's very critical. Everything through all the learnings, all the insights from this lab, we will be working together with the organizations and the sector at large and around advocating and influencing policy around that. And then the last one, of course, is organizational capacity. This also amounts to 15%. So things like understanding whether there's internal technical expertise when it comes to, for example, literacy and reading, for research, for example. So those are all the things that we are looking into. If it is a consortium, for example, and different organizations are bringing different expertise, that's also okay. So we would look at the overall application in itself, and whether it's one or more than one organization, we will assess the capacity accordingly. Cool. And then just very quickly on the application timelines in itself. So as Sarah mentioned, we are still at expression of interest, so that's open. And that closes on the 23rd of March. So over 3 week, more or less 3 week period. And then after that, we will be shortlisting and inviting applicants for full proposal, and we should start communicating this from the 30th of March. And just under another 3 week kind of a period period to develop the full proposal, and that closes on the 20th of April. And we are aiming to have selection and selecting the organization by May. We're working at the moment towards mid-May and end of May. So those are like high level what our timeframes are. Just a big piece that we have been receiving quite a few questions around is around eligibility. So we highly encourage, or we are, I see Sarah's back, we are highly encouraging and looking out for across the different uh, languages as well, looking at English, French, Portuguese speaking or led African languages. We are looking at between, if it's a single, so if you're planning to apply as a single organization, anything from +5 years of experience in delivering literacy programs. I think that's the key important piece here. And if it's less than at 5 years, then we would highly encourage partnerships partnerships or consortiums. But very particularly to have in terms of the application to have one lead or one applicant. And then where we are prioritizing, there's the list of countries. So it's Cote d'Ivoire, Ethiopia, Ghana, Kenya, Mozambique, Nigeria, South Africa, or Tanzania. Those are kind of like the priority countries. However, folks, will be considering any strong compelling, backed by research innovations outside of these specific countries, but across sub-Saharan Africa. But just to note, the priority countries are the ones that are listed here. And if you are implementing outside of these countries, we will only consider it if it has a very strong research rationale and program design and strong backing of the innovation in itself. Sarah, do you want to take over here?
Sure. So in terms of implementation, what are the kinds of innovations that we are looking for? So we're looking for classroom-based instructional practices, first of all. So we're looking at things that could feasibly be implemented across many settings, across sub-Saharan Africa, practices that are discrete and could be transferred and applied in different ways in these different settings. They need to be things that could reasonably be implemented in African public school classrooms. So not things that require a lot of resources that wouldn't normally be available in these contexts. We're very specifically looking at innovations being delivered in grades 1 to 3. I already saw some questions in the chat about this and put a message there as well. But we are very specifically looking at those 3 grade levels for this program. So during the first year, you would need to at least be implementing in grades 1 and 2. And during the second year, you would need to be at least implementing in grades 2 and 3 so that you have a cohort of children who've been participating and receiving this solution for 2 years. Again, should have the clear potential to be affordable within government systems, and they can be delivered in any language that's relevant to the setting. So you might have something being a program being delivered in an indigenous language, the rationale being that that's laying a solid foundation for a shift to a different language in the future, if that's relevant for the context. It could also be that you're delivering a program in the official language or the language of instruction because that's aligned to that context. So we're agnostic about the language as long as it makes sense and has a strong rationale for that setting. And the kind of critical thing here is that because the focus of this program is on innovation, we're really looking for approaches that go beyond what we would consider kind of business as usual or standard foundational literacy programs, and looking for things that incorporate really specific and unique instructional practices. So that could be something that's totally new that hasn't been tried before, and it's something that you're looking to test within this program. It could also be something that you're already doing within your programming, but you recognize is different from what others are doing or what's often included in foundational literacy programs. But in the application, we'll be looking for you to explain how what the innovation you're suggesting goes kind of above and beyond or is different from business as usual. And we have a few categories here of instructional practices that we have included to help you frame your application. Uh, so these include phonics instruction, reading practice, spelling or writing instruction, literacy-based language instruction, and assessment-informed instruction. If none of these describes your solution very well, you can also apply under other literacy solution and make a case for the rationale behind what you're proposing. And your solution may incorporate several or even all of these categories. But when you're applying, we really want you to think about what makes your solution unique. What is it that is really different about your solution, and which of these categories best captures that? So under phonics instruction, there are obviously lots of phonics programs out there. The idea behind phonics instruction, of course, is that you're explicitly teaching the relationships between letters or symbols and sounds. So if you are applying under this category, again, we would encourage you to think about how is the phonics instruction that you're proposing or you're delivering different from other practices and programs that are out there. Under reading practice, we are really looking for specific reading routines that may be guided by teachers that are giving students more time spent reading. And again, we'd be looking at what exactly are the features of this practice, how does it work, what are the steps, as opposed to just generally saying, our innovation is reading practice. We would want you to really specify what that is. For spelling and writing instruction, we know that many foundational literacy programs up to this point have not always included spelling or writing. So this could be either at the word level on the spelling instruction, or for writing, it could be a practice that's more about getting kids to write longer texts. So either of those would fit under this category. For literacy-based language instruction, this is back to the point earlier about how language is a really critical part of learning to read. So we're not looking really for oral only language approaches, but we would be looking for approaches to building language skills that incorporate text. And the final category we have here is assessment-informed instruction, and this would be anything around targeted small group instruction, so using assessment in any way to guide instruction. So we wouldn't be looking for only an assessment tool, but we would be looking for you to demonstrate how what teachers are learning from that assessment is feeding into classroom instruction in some way. Nangamzo, did you want to come in? Okay. Also on your application, we are going to ask you about the current level of evidence that you have supporting your solution. And to be clear, we don't see this as a hierarchy where evidence-based is necessarily rated higher or that we're only looking for innovations in that category, because we are specifically looking at identifying innovative solutions. So when you're applying, we just want you to think about what's the rationale for why you think this is a possible solution to the challenges that we've seen with fluency. So option one would be that it has rationale. So this would be a solution that is grounded in reading theory and research, but hasn't been tested yet. So here we would want you to explain what kind of research or theory are you basing this on. The next category would be research-based. So this would be if you are creating a different version, an adapted version or an intensified version of a solution that has previously improved at least one literacy outcome. So say you have a solution that you previously implemented and saw that it improved letter recognition or it improved word reading. But now you're adding an additional component that you think is going to take students even farther toward fluency. Finally, if you have a solution that you already have evidence gets most children reading by the end of grade 3, reading fluently by the end of grade 3, you can apply under that category, and we'll ask you to share that evidence with us. So again, here the idea is that no matter at what stage you are, whether this is your first time coming up with this solution and you're rolling it out for the first time, or it's something that's been part of your programming before, we just want to have an idea of why is it that you think this would work. And just as a note, if you are applying with the digital solution, we'll also ask you to demonstrate that your solution is operational and ready to be implemented. So for example, at the expression of interest phase, we'll ask you to attach some screenshots of what your solution looks like. One of the most critical parts of this program is the evidence generation component. So in addition to implementing your solution, the idea is that you're also collecting evidence about how it's working. So here we have a list of the commitments that participants will need to make to generating this kind of evidence, just so that you're aware of it going into the application process. So this would include applying for research clearance in your context, recruiting both treatment and comparison schools. So the tiers that Nangamzo described, where we have certain numbers of schools where you're implementing the program, you would need to be able to recruit an equivalent number of comparison schools to conduct assessments there as well, so that at the end you're able to compare the progress of students who are in your program and similar students who are not receiving that solution. We will also be asking you to implement some core subtasks of the early grade reading assessment at 3 different time points, a baseline, a midline, and an endline. To conduct termly fluency assessments, just quick 1-minute assessments each school term. For implementation fidelity, we will ask you to carry out classroom observation using a tool that's shared across the cohort, as well as interviewing teachers and other key stakeholders to understand, that would be at the midline, to understand their experience with the program and anything that you could improve on the implementation side in the second year. And finally, conducting data analysis and generating evidence products. So we would really encourage you, as you are considering submitting an expression of interest, to reflect on whether your organization, if you are an implementing organization, whether you have the capacity to generate this kind of evidence to meet these requirements, or if you would like to apply with a research partner as a consortium, because those are the 2 application options. If you can apply as a single organization or as a consortium, and we see that as a great opportunity for organizations to partner with local researchers, local research institutions, if this feels like something that is more feasible with a partner as opposed to doing it all on your own. So that is the end of what we wanted to share, and we will be able to spend the rest of the time answering your questions. So I think we can start with the ones in the chat. Nangamzo, do you want to start with those?
Yeah, sure. I tried to respond to them, Sarah, as we are going. So I think I've responded to most questions, but maybe we can just if anyone wants to come in at this stage, maybe if you can just raise your hand and we will take 3 questions at a time if the questions on the chat hasn't been answered, but I tried to answer them as we were going along to save us some. Okay, so I see Park. Let me just make my screen. Okay, Park, you can come in. So I see Park, I see Hassana, and then let's see. Okay, we'll take those 2 for now, Park and Hassana. So Park, we'll start off with you.
Yeah, thank you very much for the nice presentation. It is real kind of good and interested presentations. Yeah, I have a questions, and my questions. Could you explain more on spelling and the writing instructions? What is looking like, especially in research and the implementation side? Thank you.
Thanks, Park. Hassana, do you want to come in with your question and then Sarah can respond to the 2?
Okay, hello, good afternoon. Thank you for that wonderful presentation. So I have 2 questions. First question is the comparison schools for the research, are they part of the target number of schools, the 80 to 100 schools that was mentioned? And second question, for reading ability, does it have to be reading English? What if they learn to read in other languages? Just wanted to confirm if local language literacy was part of the outcome.
Great. Yeah, thank you so much for the questions. For the first question around spelling and writing, actually, we'll also share a link to the recent GEEP report because it has a great section outlining some of the research areas and kind of gaps in this area. But in general, with spelling, we might be looking at solutions that are phonics programs, but instead of only teaching how to identify the letter and say the sound and then put that together to read words and to read text, simultaneously teaching spelling. So if you're teaching students how to read words with the letter B, in that same section, you might also be teaching students how to spell words with the letter B. So teaching phonics and spelling together could be one example. Another example could be something like using ongoing spelling assessments to guide instruction. So that could be potentially a way that teachers are assessing students and they're using that data to provide targeted instruction. And at the writing level, so bigger picture than spelling, that could be any kind of intervention that's getting students writing with support at the text level. So whether it's at kind of the smaller level, more granular level of spelling, all the way up to texts, all of those would be considered under that category. For the comparison schools, those would be in addition to the numbers that were in that chart. So the numbers that are there, you would think about doubling that essentially once you include the comparison schools. So if you're implementing in 50 schools, you would need to identify another 50 schools for the comparison. And for the number of languages, or sorry, the languages that are eligible, it can be any language that's eligible or that's relevant to the setting. So for example, if you were in Kenya and you were implementing a program in students' mother tongue, the rationale being that that's going to give them a solid foundation for future literacy performance. That's great. If you're in Kenya and you're implementing a program in English because that's one of the languages in the national curriculum, then that's also great. So it can be in any language that's relevant to the setting. You will just need to explain in your application why you're choosing to implement in that language. Oh, go ahead.
Cool. No, I just wanted to just identify, we'll take Gloria, Isaac, I think that's GA, and Atutuzas. We'll take those four questions, Sarah, because we still got time. So Gloria, Isaac, GA, and
That's Gideon.
Atatuzasu in that. Gideon. Oh, hi, Gideon.
So thank you. Thank you. So my first question is, can an organization decide to outsource the research aspect? You still apply just as an independent organization, but as part of the implementation process, you outsource the research to a private consultant. Will that be allowed? And then with the treatment and control schools, must the numbers be the same? Or the treatment schools could be the 50 and probably you could have maybe a control school being, let's say, 10. And in the event that you are putting in a joint application with another organization, does the budget amount still remain at the 350,000 maximum, or it will be varied because you are a consortium? Thank you.
Isaac?
Yes, thank you for the presentation. There is a handful of information about requirements for the EOI and all of that. And I'm just trying to wrap my head around all of that information. Is a lot. And I've tried to use the link to see if I can also get a handle on all of the information. Could we have maybe a one-page document that can highlight the clear objectives of this call so that the requirements are easily pinpointed so that when we're throwing in our EOI, it will fit the requirements that you both have run us through?
Thanks, Isaac. Gideon?
Yes, thanks. Thanks, boss, for the presentation. Just a simple one. I see a list of priority countries listed in the document. So, my question is, can an agency or an organization apply for one or few countries from the list, or are we expected to cover the full countries?
Thanks, Gideon. Atituzazu?
Forward. My question is on the location of the experimental and the control group. Looking at the size of the schools, the experimental schools, and also the control schools, will it be a requirement to just have these schools in the same locality or in different localities? The location, okay, because location may matter in the implementation of the control and the experimental programs. So what do we say about the locations of these schools? Should they be in the same location or anywhere in different places? Thank you.
Great. Sarah, just wanted to check, did you get all of those?
Yep.
Cool.
Great. So thank you for all of those questions. The first one was, can you outsource the research components? So we would recommend that you decide how you're going to do that before you submit the expression of interest, because one of the things that we're looking for in that is your research capacity. So we would recommend that if you do want to work with another, that's great. It's great to work with local researchers, local research institutions. But we would just recommend starting those conversations now so that you're able to include that when you submit your expression of interest. For the comparison schools, we would be looking for you to have a similar number of comparison schools as implementing schools. So if you are implementing and testing the solution and collecting data in 50 implementing schools, we would look for you to have a similar number of comparison schools. The budget amounts are the same for whether you're applying as a single organization or as a consortium. It just depends on which of the two tiers that you're applying under. So you could apply as a single organization under tier 1 or tier 2, or as a consortium under each of those tiers. But it's determined by the tier rather than by how many organizations are applying together. For a consolidated place with all of the information about the program, I will share the link to the webpage in the chat again, but we would really recommend downloading the application pack. Again, it's available in English, French, and Portuguese, but that has all of the information that we just shared in the presentation. So we would really recommend referring back to that as you're creating your expression of interest. You do not have to be implementing across all of those countries that we mentioned. You just need to be implementing in at least one of them. And for the location of the comparison schools, you would want to be able to make the case that the comparison schools are very similar to the schools where you're implementing the program. So you would be looking for schools that are the most similar. So hopefully they would be in a similar location. And you can explain exactly how you might be able to do that. That wouldn't be until the full proposal stage, but just something to think about, that as you think about where you would find those comparison schools, you would want them to be as similar as possible to the schools where you're implementing. I see we also have some more questions in the chat. Okay, we've answered that one. Is an after-school intervention acceptable, or does it need to take place during the standard school day? So it is, and we would just ask you, there's a place in the expression of interest where if you're implementing in a outside of the regular school day, to explain why you think that what you're doing would also be feasible for other organizations to do during the school day. But if you're currently doing it after school, that's fine. Direct link to download the application brief. Sure. Let me share I'm just sharing the link so that so that you can access it in all 3 languages, but you just scroll to the bottom of the page and all of the PDFs are there. Yeah, if you've already submitted an EOI and after today you've realized that you might want to change your approach, that's totally fine. You can just send us an email and we'll be happy to disregard the previous one and take a look at the new one that you're submitting. The rationale for recruiting an equivalent number of comparison schools, yeah, absolutely understand if organizations feel like the solution is not ready to be tested at that level. But that is what we're looking for this program. So we would encourage you to think about what is ready to be tested at that level and craft the application from there. Yes, we will share the recording of the session afterwards. Can an organization without a board of directors and audited accounts apply through an institution's venture that meets these requirements? We have in the application pack, in the expression of interest, there's more detailed information about our due diligence requirements. And there's also a space for you to explain if you have any extenuating circumstances. If, for example, you don't have a board of directors or audited accounts. So I would just encourage you to look at that section of the EOI in more detail, and then please reach out if you have any additional questions after that. Screenshots of solutions. So this is specifically for digital solutions. So if you have an app that students or teachers are accessing, we just want to have an idea of, is that app ready to go, ready to be implemented in schools? So that's only a requirement for digital solutions. Say an app, for example, we would request screenshots of that. Maybe we can switch back to the raised hands now.
Sure, yeah. So we've got Richard, Sarah, and Andiwo. I think Pox, that's an old hand. So we'll go Richard, Sarah, and Andiwo.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for the presentation. So if we are implementing in several countries, would we be able to apply for each country? With different projects, obviously. Thank you.
Thanks, Richard. Sarah?
Thank you so much. Just wondering if an after-school program is acceptable or should it take place within the standard school day hours? Thank you.
Andiwo?
Yeah, thank you. My question is, if you are an international organization working in Africa and you have local partners in different areas where you want to work, are you allowed to apply? Are you eligible for internationals working with local partners?
Sure, Sarah. Did you get...
Yes, so if you are working in multiple countries, you can only submit one application, but if you would like to submit an application to implement in multiple countries, then you're welcome to put that in your application. But each organization can only submit one application for the program. An after-school program is acceptable. There's a section in the expression of interest where you can explain if you're implementing in a non-traditional setting like that, why you think that even though you're implementing it in an after-school program, this is something that could realistically also be implemented during the school day across contexts. But you can do it in an after-school program. At least one organization in the consortium needs to be a locally led organization. And we would really encourage the local partners to apply directly themselves.
So I'm just skimming through. Another question, I think you've answered the one around implementing in several countries could apply. So if an organization is implementing across more than one country, are they eligible to apply? And Philip is asking, can you please throw more light on 3A under the monitoring and evaluation? And Hassan is asking about, can the comparison group be 2-to-1 or is it a 1-to-1 matching?
The reference to 3A, Philip, I'm not sure if you can explain. I'm not sure where that is, but happy to clarify. For the comparison schools, it should be pretty close to 1-to-1. So the number of schools where you're implementing and testing, recruiting the same number of comparison schools. I've shared the link to the GEEP report as well, which goes beyond just spelling and writing, like I mentioned, and it has sections about with lots of research across low and middle income countries. What do we know so far about what works? What are some of the questions that are still remaining? So overall, a really great resource as you're thinking about framing your solution. And to that point, the application pack also has a section at the end with a very short literature review about each of those categories of innovations. So would really recommend that you refer to that as well as the GEEP report, which is linked in the chat and linked in the application pack as well. Can you do more than one language? Nangamzo replied, yes, you can. If we're implementing in several geographic locations with different native languages, but within the same country, can they be combined in one application? Yes, absolutely. So if you have a similar program and you're implementing it, say, in different languages based on the languages spoken in that area, but it's the same general approach across all of those, then you can submit that as a single application. As far as what the expression of interest form covers, it's at the same link where the application packs are linked. You can also find the expression of interest forms there. You can just download the Word document and see everything in one place there. Each organization can only submit one application total. So if you're submitting an application by yourself, that would be your one. If you are applying as part of a consortium, that would be your one application. Okay, great, Philip. Thanks for sharing it. Let me just go back to that slide. Can you see my screen? Okay.
Yes.
Great. So let me just give an example of each of these. So say you have been implementing a program that's totally reading based. You haven't done anything with spelling before. And you decide that for the purposes of for this program, you're going to be trialing a spelling component to your literacy program. So you might apply under has rationale. This is something totally different to what you've done before. You don't have evidence from your own organization, your own implementation experience, but there's lots of research in the broader research base about spelling being an effective way to improve literacy skills and reading skills. So you would want to cite those sources about how spelling instruction can improve reading. Say you have been implementing a reading program that includes spelling instruction, but you want to really beef up that spelling component. So say up until now, it was a very quick, say 2-minute component once a week, but you want to really focus in on that and try devoting more time and intensifying it. So you could provide, that would be under research based. So you could provide us evidence about how your program, the impact of your program in the past, and then explain why you think that increasing the time dedicated to this component has the potential to be even better for students. And then a third example would be, say you have been incorporating spelling into your literacy program. It's always been a huge part of what you've done. And you have evidence that your program has gotten a lot of students to read fluently within the first years of school. Then you can explain in your application how despite lots of programs not including spelling instruction, yours does, and you think that's what's driving the improvement that you've seen in your students. So any of those would be fine, and we're not necessarily prioritizing one above the other, but it's just an opportunity for you to reflect on why you think your solution has the potential to address this challenge. Yes, so both the implementation and the research costs would be covered by that budget of the $350K for that tier. That's correct. I see we've got a couple more hands now.
So I'm not sure if Andrews, that's an old hand, but we've got Manjamo. Manjamo. Okay, maybe the question has been answered. Don't know if there's anything else, Sarah. I think we've answered.
I think we have answered all the ones in the chat. So please, if you've put something in there and it hasn't been answered, please go ahead and submit it again. Or if you'd like to ask a question out loud, looks like we'll be wrapping up soon. So please feel free to put up your hand now.
Yeah, I have another question. I put the question on the chat. My question is about the young organizations like startups, social enterprises are allowed to apply for this call for expression?
Nangamzo, could you confirm the number of years and back to the point about implementation experience?
Yeah, so I think Pox, it's important to consider that capacity is one of the criteria that you're looking at. So if you're a younger organization, um, less than 5 years, which means that you would qualify for potentially the tier two. The only thing is just to be mindful of making sure that you have the capacity, particularly around literacy and reading and research as well. So yes, you can apply, but just bear in mind if you're going to be applying as a singular startup enterprise, making sure that you have the internal capacity, or alternatively applying as a consortium to make up some of the capacities that your organization might not have. So yeah, and then Sabrish's question, if an organization be at least 5 years to apply. No, so Sabrish was saying that your more smaller, younger organizations potentially can fit under tier two. But if it's a consortium of a combination of more matured and much more younger organization, then they can then apply for tier one grant. I think the key thing around this, folks, is in because capacity is one of the criteria that we're looking at. So understanding who's the core team, who would be, whether the relevant expertise is housed internally or as part of the consortium or partnering or partnered organization. Sabrish, does that make sense? Sure. So just again to highlight, it doesn't necessarily mean if you're a younger organization, you cannot consider a tier one. But it might be that if you are a much more a smaller organization, to partner up with an organization that is slightly more mature, probably has a lot more capacity around this, around the skill sets and expertise required to deliver on the program, and therefore you guys could potentially also apply for tier one scale and budget application. Sarah, I don't see any additional hands or any additional questions on the chat. So I think maybe if we can wrap it up, and if there's any additional question, folks, Sarah did share the email. Maybe Sarah, if you can just drop it in the chat. If anything arises between now and your submission, please feel free to drop us an email, and we will be more than willing to answer any questions that you may have regarding your application. I hope this was useful to you guys, and at least giving you some direction around how we're thinking about this lab and particular innovations and any specific guidelines around sciences, budgets, organizational types, etc. Thank you, everyone. And we're also encouraging partnerships as part of this process. I'd like to just drop that in there.